Welcome to AFRORIZE TV, where Africa tells its own story. He was once called a barbarian, a savage, a tyrant, but history got it wrong because behind the fear, the myths, and the silence lies one of the greatest minds Africa ever produced. This is not just the story of a warrior, this is the story of a boy born in exile, who rose to defy empires. This is Shaka Zulu, the genius who redefined warfare, united a people, and built an African empire without a single cannon. Born in 1787, Shaka was the illegitimate child of Senzanga Kona, chief of the Zulu clan, and Nandi, a woman of the Langeni people. Because his parents weren't formally married, his birth was seen as shameful. Tribal law branded him an outcast. Shaka and his mother were driven out, humiliated, shunned, left to fend for themselves. They moved between clans, facing insults, hunger, and humiliation. Shaka's childhood was brutal, but pain forged his character. He learned how to survive alone, how to watch, how to calculate. Others played, he practiced. This wasn't just a child growing up, it was the birth of a lion. This is a legend about Shaka Zulu, the man who outsmarted an empire. He was born unwanted, but the boy they rejected would one day shake the world. While other boys his age played with balls made of grass and gourds, Shaka trained. He toughened his body and hardened his mind. Every scar, every mark telling a tale of resilience. He studied nature, watched predators, mimicked their precision. He knew pain. He knew hunger, but he also knew this: no one remembers the forgotten, only the feared. By the time he reached his teens, Shaka was physically imposing, tall, strong, relentless. He joined the Mthethwa military, serving under the powerful chief Dingiswayo, a ruler known for his diplomacy and order. Shaka took command of the Mthethwa forces, but he had a bigger vision: to unite the Nguni-speaking peoples under one banner, the Zulu. At the time, southern Africa was filled with rival clans and kingdoms, fragmented, vulnerable. Shaka knew unity was strength, so he began a bold campaign. Through war, alliance, and absorption, villages either joined him or ceased to exist. He created age-based military regiments called Amabutho, housing them in fortified military kraals. These weren't just soldiers, they were brothers, warriors, nation builders. He instituted discipline, loyalty, and celibacy among his fighters. No warrior could marry until he earned it through valor. And then came his masterpiece, the bull horns formation. The chest engaged directly. The horns flanked and encircled. The loins, reserves, stayed hidden, ready to finish. It was brutal, precise, devastating. From 1816 to 1825, Shaka fought more than 100 battles. He never lost a single one. It would not be easy. The clans were suspicious of each other. For generations, small disputes over land and cattle had escalated into bloody battles. Trust was as fragile as the morning mist. Imagine two mighty bulls locking horns in a deadly dance. That was the Zulu formation. The chest hit first, disrupting enemy formations, throwing off balance. Then the horns would wrap around, trapping and disabling. Finally, the loins would crush any remaining resistance, a beautiful display of power. Shaka drilled his men relentlessly, ensuring they understood the nuances of the formation, the strength behind the unison, the precision that made it unstoppable. When other African nations saw this formation in action, they marveled. When Europeans witnessed it, they feared. But we must remember that the Zulus weren't just killing machines. Their tactics weren't just about brute force. They were a response to Shaka's keen observations. He recognized the strengths and weaknesses of different weapons, the importance of mobility, and the power of psychological warfare. European colonists who arrived during this time expected primitive tribes. What they found was a well-organized state with structured armies, logistical systems, and advanced intelligence networks. Shaka turned what some considered a primitive weapon, the assegai, into a deadly tool of war. He developed a battle formation that could counter the European charge and stand up to their weaponry. And he used psychology to great effect. Shaka used spies to gather information, strategically positioned scouts, and developed early warning systems. His warriors could travel 50 miles in a day, barefoot, with little food or water. He introduced messenger relays like ancient African postal systems, ensuring orders moved quickly across his territory. He didn't just win battles, he built a machine. The British and Portuguese wrote about him with fear and fascination. He didn't just fight, he planned, he anticipated, he outsmarted. Shaka would deliberately let small groups of enemy soldiers escape after a battle, carrying tales of the Zulus' prowess back to their nations. This created a ripple effect of fear, discouraging potential aggressors and magnifying the Zulus' reputation. But who was Shaka? As a man, he was ruthless, but also brilliant. He valued loyalty above all. He trusted few, loved fewer. To his warriors, he was a god king. To his enemies, a nightmare. He punished betrayal with death, but rewarded excellence with honor. He believed deeply in ancestral power, consulted traditional diviners, and respected the spiritual forces that guided Zulu life. Yet he was always alone, a man surrounded by thousands, yet haunted by his past. The pain of exile never truly left him. And don't forget the Zulus' speed. Their warriors moved faster than the time it took for European soldiers to reload their muskets. And while those soldiers fumbled with their firearms, the Zulu would be upon them, stabbing, slashing, overwhelming. It was a brutal education for the colonizers. They had maps, he had momentum, they had muskets, he had mastery. So why did this brilliant man, this military genius, this unifier of clans, why did Shaka Zulu die the way he did? In 1827, tragedy struck. Shaka's beloved mother, Nandi, the woman who suffered beside him since exile, died. Some say it was a natural death, others that she was poisoned by her enemies. Whatever the truth, something inside Shaka broke. For weeks, he seemed lost, haunted by grief. His advisors pleaded with him to move on, to focus on the threats looming at the border, to remember that he was the indomitable Shaka, the man who had stared down Dingiswayo, who had built the Zulu from nothing. But their words seemed to bounce off a wall. In his grief, he unleashed a wave of terror across his kingdom. He declared that no crops be planted for a year, no milk to be consumed. Anyone who didn't mourn hard enough, executed. Some accounts say 7,000 people were killed during the mourning period. He banned activity. Women were murdered for being pregnant. His grief became madness, and his rule, a reign of fear. Those closest to him began to whisper, Shaka had gone too far. It was a dark chapter, even for a man as ruthless as Shaka. But grief isn't always rational. In this case, it was disastrous. Discontent spread like wildfire. The enemy at the border grew bolder, and in the shadows, his half-brothers plotted. Dingiswayo's widow, fearing Shaka's growing instability, sought refuge with her brother, who just happened to be Shaka's half-brother. Together with another half-brother, they hatched a plot. On September 23, 1828, they sent for Shaka. He obliged, unguarded, walking with family and close aides, confident in the belief that his brothers would never betray him. Which they did. While walking with his half-brothers Dingaan and Malangana, Shaka was ambushed and stabbed. He died not in war, not by an army, but by his own blood. His body was buried in an unmarked grave near Kwadukuza. No ceremony, no glory. A king, erased by jealousy. but his legacy was too powerful to be buried. Shaka didn't just change the Zulu, he changed history. Today, his image is everywhere, emblazoned on T-shirts, painted on walls, carved in statues. He is a legend, a symbol of African excellence, a reminder that even in the darkest times, greatness can emerge. He was born unwanted, cast aside, the product of a forbidden love. He was Shaka Zulu, the man who outsmarted an empire. Today, Shaka is more than a man. He is a symbol of African power, intelligence, and self-determination. His tactics are taught in military schools around the world. A figure of African excellence, a man who rose from exile to emperor. A tactician whose ideas are still studied in modern military schools. A leader who turned a tribe into a nation. He didn't wear a crown. He didn't sit on a golden throne. He wore scars, and he ruled with brilliance. Shaka didn't just change the Zulu, he changed history. And in doing so, he gave Africa a story no empire could ever erase. His memory echoes in Zulu chants, monuments, and pride. He proved to the world that Africa had genius long before colonization, that African kings could command nations, outwit empires, and inspire generations. He didn't rule with gold, he ruled with fire. He didn't need maps, he redrew them. He didn't just fight enemies, he shattered assumptions. Shaka Zulu, the boy who was exiled, the warrior who never lost, the king they tried to silence, the genius who outsmarted an empire. The story of Shaka Zulu is more than the tale of a warrior or a king. It's a mirror held up to history, reflecting one lesson that still echoes through time. True power is not just in the sword, but in the vision behind it. Shaka rose from nothing, rejected, humiliated, and cast aside, yet he turned pain into purpose and purpose into power. He taught us that greatness isn't inherited, it's forged, with courage, strategy, and the audacity to believe in something bigger than yourself. But he also reminds us, power without compassion, unity without balance, can unravel even the mightiest of empires. So the lesson is this: lead with strength, but also with wisdom. Fight for your people, but never forget your humanity. Because in the end, it's not the battles we win that define us. It's the legacy we leave behind. And this is Africa telling its own story. This is AFRORIZE TV. Like, subscribe, and comment. Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful. Thank you for joining us today. This is one story that shouldn't have been forgotten.